Welcome back to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by CrowdStrike, who reminds you, your servers can't be attacked if they won't boot. You're welcome. Episode 303, Chain React 2024 Recap.
All right, so I think I'm just going to speed run through the intro because we have so much content to get to, and I don't want this to be like one of those 1 hour episodes that make Jed and Todd hate us. So let's just go really quickly. I'm Jamon. We've got Mazen. We've got Robin, all from Infinite Red. We also have behind the scenes Jed Bartausky, our director of operations, and he will be sitting in. Maybe he'll pitch in as well because he's got a few stories.
You might get to hear his voice. Who knows?
Maybe.
That was wow, that was quick. Could not keep his mouth shut. That's that's par for the course. All right, today we're going to be talking about Chain React 2024, which just concluded a little bit ago, and we're gonna share our impressions and kind of, I guess, talk about some of the highlights, and then we're going to share some fun stories across kind of the behind the scenes, what you don't get to see.
Yeah, you get some behind the curtain.
Yeah. We pulled the team, and we got some good stuff. So let's launch into this. Robin, I want to ask you. So okay, well, first let me just get into this by saying what Chain React even is, because maybe there's someone listening to this who doesn't know. Chain React is our React Native conference.
If this is your first time listening to React Native Radio,
what are you saying?
That's a really interesting one to choose.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to choose. That's true.
I would maybe go back and listen to some old ones first.
Maybe it's because they were just at Chain React and they were like, all right, I want to...
In which case, they know what Chain React is.
But they want to know about the behind the
This
scenes.
is why you never start a podcast with engineers. All right, so...
You're trying so hard. You're trying so hard, Mazen, and Robin is just ruthlessly shooting you down.
Okay, let's try this. Chain React is a React Native conference put on by our company, Infinite Red. And it is in Portland every year. We've done 5 of them now, and it just wrapped up. And so now we're going to talk about it. And it was a lot of fun. So, Robin, quick reactions. How'd it go?
Great. If I were to do one word, it would be great. It felt a little kind of like I did on my wedding day when I walked into the reception and you could see like the manifestation of like a year's worth of work all at once. And it was that feeling like for a whole week. And I didn't even do like the lion's share of the work. That was Justin Husky, who's not here talking with us.
Yeah.
But
Huge kudos.
All the credit. Huge kudos. But yeah, that's basically what it felt like. It was really gratifying to see it come together.
Yeah, there was so much work that happened, and I agree. Like walking in and actually see it come to fruition was such a huge deal. Mazen, what about you? What were your initial, or what's your sort of quick reaction to Chain React?
It was amazing to see all our hard work come together. Of course, with being part of the workshops, that was a lot of time and effort, and just kind of seeing everyone from the team doing all that. The talks were great, and the food, in my opinion, is amazing, and 100% what I look forward to. Like while there's a person speaking, I'm like, come on, let's go, food time. Derek does a really good job with it. Some of the stuff like my wife sends me pictures of, it's literally like low grade Panera bread, and they like literally shook the box a million times before giving it out to them.
I've been to those conferences. Yes, I've been there.
Yeah, and worse than that. So
yeah. Well, it better be amazing considering how much we spent on it. Honestly, that's my quick reaction. Is the quality was just absolutely top notch. We can't seem to do anything low quality. This is why having engineers do a podcast or do a conference, it's just going to be. It's going to be over-engineered. It's going to be high quality to the max, but I know people really appreciate it. We had such great response from everybody. Okay, so that was quick reactions. Let's talk highlights. So, Robin, were there any highlights for you from the conference? I'm sure there were many, but let's just grab a couple.
Oh, yeah. So many, while speaking, was one, obviously. I did my first talk, which was awesome. I was super nervous, and then I felt really good about it afterwards. So we'll see if that leads to me doing more.
You did a fantastic job.
I also really enjoyed meeting a lot of listeners. I took quite a number of selfies with a lot of you, and it's really fun to sort of hear from people who listen to us every week. So yeah, those were the highlights.
That definitely stood out for me as well. Like so many people I'd go up to and be like, they'd introduce themselves, and I'd be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm Jamon. And they'd be like, oh, I know you. Yeah. I listened to you on the podcast. Mazen, what about you? What were some highlights for you?
The workshop, for sure, 100%. It all went according to
Which
plan.
one did you do?
I did the advanced one. JP from Infinite Red did the beginner, and Keith Craig from Expo, along with Frank, led the intermediate. Along with other Infinite Red members were, assisting them too. But it was great. It all went according to plan, except for one hiccup, which we'll talk about later. I don't know if I want to call it a hiccup.
Yeah.
It all went according to plan, period.
Yeah.
We planned for hiccups, basically.
Yeah. The talks were great. And like I said, it's also nice to get to see the Infinite Red team during this event.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I think before the conference, we did the core contributor meetup where, we got some people together that are sort of like the key movers and shakers in the React Native world from Meta and Microsoft and Amazon and many other Expo and many other companies kind of came together, and I helped lead that, and it was a lot of fun. Big shout out to the people at Infinite Red that helped me with that, including Derek with the food, and Lizzie was there, Lizzie Linbo, and many others, just kind of helping to make sure that went smoothly. And then I also I led a panel, and I did this at the ReactConf as well. And I have started to realize I really like leading panels. It's like super fun. I feel comfortable. It's the type of thing that is just really kind of, I don't know. I prefer
kind of like what you do here.
Okay.
To be honest.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Maybe the
You're
fact
like
I
a
do
host,
this like 40 times a
and
year
you're moderating
actually
Yeah.
has an impact. That's why I like it. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
I think you're
I
literally
know.
hearing Jamon come to
Yeah,
this realization
This
live.
is kind of obvious. Everybody's like, well, duh. Like, come on. Okay. Well, that was a highlight. So I appreciate it. It was really great. Obviously amazing seeing all of the Infinite Red folks and all of the React Native people that we've met at different conferences and whatnot. There were a lot of new people, like something like 80% new people this year, which was really cool to see as well. All right. So we're only a few minutes into this, which is awesome, but we're already going to get to the fun part. I want to know any behind the scenes fun stories that we can share. There's some that we can't share, but let's do the ones we can share. Robin, do you have anything you want to kick us off with?
Well, I want to, I for the listeners, I do want to set the scene a little bit about what goes on to make Chain React happen like the week of. So we're not there just for the conference days. Our whole team comes for the whole week, and we spend like Monday, Tuesday, doing all sorts of setup and prep. And we have what we call pack and plan day, although it usually gets called pack and play day.
Yeah. Both because pack and play is like, is it a brand?
Any of it's a sub brand. It's a like Graco is the brand, but pack and play is their like.
It's like for
category.
Like portable.
babies,
It's portable
toddlers.
like playpens,
Yeah,
cribs.
little
Yeah.
cribs.
So parents are very familiar with the term pack and play, and then
We'd much rather
sort of
play than
caught
plan,
on anyway.
and that's true.
Yeah, we'd much rather play than plan. So we
Well,
tend to
it's
call it
kind of
pack
like a
and play
pack
day.
and
But
play.
anyway,
We're packed into a room and we're playing by putting everything together, essentially.
exactly. So okay. At Infinite Red, we're software engineers for 51 weeks of the year. This is the 1 week where we're pretty much everything else. If there's manual labor of any kind, boxes, we like moving boxes. One of our biggest jobs is filling swag bags. So think like full on assembly line. We're filling 300 tote bags full of swag. So like sorting the swag and like every person had a little station. We ended up having to redo it like 3 times because we kept finding swag that we forgot. And And then we have people like folding shirts and like organizing all sorts of like tasks that are fun when you only have to do them 1 week.
If we did this multiple times a year, it'd be rough, but it's fun. Yeah, it's totally fun.
And then like we also did some interesting craft exercises. So if you were at the conference, you know that we had like these light up letters underneath the screen that said Chain React. Well, what you probably didn't know is that those letters were put together by the Infinite Red team over the course of like 5 hours on Tuesday with glue guns, literally hot glue guns. We had like 5 of them. We only started with 1 and had to run to the store to get more because it was taking too long. But that's the kind of thing that we all come together and everyone pitches in. And if you're standing around, you'll get put to work doing something. But it's really fun to come together as a team.
When we set those letters up too, Mark spent so much time making sure the spacing was dialed.
Oh yeah. I believe he said the kerning is off.
He whipped out the kerning. I'm like, oh, this guy's not messing around.
I think even on day 2, he was like, yeah, I shifted them like 6 inches forward because I felt like they needed to be a little bit closer because of the backlight or something. He had crazy reason for it.
By the way, this is what
That
it's
man
like to
cared
work
about the letters,
with Mark on a project. He'll just make these little tweaks that like all the time because they bug him. In fact, last year he gave a talk called Outrage Driven Development, which is all about this subject. So go watch that.
Yeah.
We got a story from Kate from our team. Mazen, can you tell that story?
Yeah, so there were 2 devs. They were from the Netherlands. They were actually in the advanced workshop that I was giving. And they actually didn't hear or know about Chain React or this podcast prior to a coworker telling them, so their coworker, hello coworker, thank you coworker, who listens to the podcast, pretty much told them like, hey, Infrared's putting on Chain React. You guys should go and you should go to the advanced workshop. Go. And Kate kind of met them and just learned that story through them. They were...
I think she said they called themselves the Dutch Boys. And one of us said, well, they probably should have called themselves
the Dutch Bros. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's better.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're 24 years old and they were pretty good, like caught on real well, and they seem to enjoy themselves. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
I love seeing the direct impact that the podcast had on people show up.
Absolutely.
Actually, one of the highest, we give out discount codes in various places. Just to kind of see like where we're getting ticket sales, and the React Native Radio code was one of the highest. So thank you, listeners, for coming.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Jed, this is why we gave you a mic this time. We want to hear this story about the
This
Wi-Fi.
is my favorite story, hands down.
My time has come.
Let's hear the story.
Okay, so come with me on a little adventure. It's like Wednesday morning. The workshops has started to kick off. You know, I'm running around helping with setup and stuff. Justin comes and tracks me down. He's like, dude, there's something going on with the Wi-Fi. I'm like, what the heck? So I fire up my phone. I look, and yeah, there's just some wonky stuff going on. It's like the download uploads all over the map. I flagged down Alexandria, who's like one of our main contacts at the Armory where we had Chain React at, who was amazing. Yeah, the whole conference, she was awesome. I was like, we're having an issue with the internet service provider, and I need you to reach out to him. So she gave him a call. Man from the internet shows up about 10 minutes later.
I am man with internet.
That's actually the first thing I said to him. I'm like, oh, you're from the internet. And he did not laugh. And so I was like, all right, well, this is how it's going to go. So
well he was
really
not
set the tone, I
from
think.
the internet because he didn't have any internet.
He didn't have any internet.
He didn't have any internet.
As it turns out.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for the rest of the story.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, we're having internet issues. He was like, all right, cool. Do you know where the network equipment's installed? I just gave him this blank stare because they were the folks that installed the network equipment. And I was like, sir, I have no idea. And so then he got on the phone with his supervisor and he's trying to track all that stuff down. This whole saga between me and the man from the internet went on for the rest of the conference. But long story short, I was vigorously checking in with him about how things were going. Because, I mean, you know, everybody wants to have good internet at a tech conference.
Well, it was workshop day too, so it was pretty.
And it was workshop day.
It was pretty essential because people were downloading packages and
Yeah, all that
Xcode.
stuff. So it got to a point where I had checked in with him so much that at one point I was talking with Justin. We see him. In fact, Justin sees him kind of walking up and he's like, oh, there's Wi-Fi guy. And I turned around and I looked and he saw me turn around and look. And as soon as I looked at him, you pull your phone out of your pocket like you're answering a phone call. That's exactly what he did. And then I see him go down the stairs and his phone's about 3 inches from the side of his head.
So he is
So
avoiding
he's just
you.
like faking a phone call to avoid
Pretending to be
talking
on
to
the
me.
phone.
Like that's the point that our relationship had gotten.
It degraded after that. Yeah.
At one point, I mean, he was trying his best. He was doing everything he could. He was in a tough spot, but it was
he was working.
There was
hard.
a part of me that had to chuckle at that.
I mean,
yeah, we did in fact get internet at some point,
it
right?
was never great.
At some
though.
point, it
Yeah.
ended up
It
being
was always
Never great, but we got to.
Yeah.
relatively stable, but it was a constant fight. So, but that's my story of Jed versus Wi-Fi man.
Well, and I wonder now, in hindsight, if any of that had to do with the CrowdStrike outages, plural, that were happening all over, because they were
Wasn't
happening
that
during the conference,
Friday?
and we
I think that
mostly
was
didn't
after,
notice because
though.
we had
Yeah, that was
Mac.
Like
Friday.
workshop days were
Was that
early.
after? Yeah.
So Mazen, I think you have a we all saw this happen, but I want you to tell the story of John Major. Do this story.
Yeah.
I want you to do this one.
Yeah. So this was Thursday at one point. Jed pulls me over and he's like, do you want to help out? I'm doing the 360 booth and we need this like fancy wrapping contraption that surrounds it. So started putting it together and then JP comes along and he starts helping out and we eventually get it done. And I'm like, all right, Jed, I'm all done. Your turn to put it in and test it out.
That thing was an adventure. That thing was an adventure to put together.
It was.
Holy cow.
So I take a seat because I'm exhausted trying to fix this thing because it was not the right size. So I'm like stretching fabric and trying to get it to work. And I look over and I see like Jed and like 2 other people. I don't even know who it was, but like they're on the floor, like underneath this 360 booth and couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. So I think Jed goes to the back and says, all right, power supply seems to be off. Brian's like, I got it. Brian runs home and like tries to test it and finds try to find a replacement. Doesn't work out. Anyways, we still need to have a 360 booth for our after party. Who steps up? John Major. John Major decides the best solution is to grab his camera, get everyone close by, and just spin around manually and take pictures while that's happening. And he was exhausted. He was dizzy for like an hour afterwards, just spinning. I can't even spin once, so I can only imagine how that happened. And then he pulled out his 360 camera, put it, and then it would take the 360 picture. And it was pretty cool. So basically going from a machine to manual labor yet again. Yeah.
Oh, people loved it. They were lining up for him.
It was amazing. Not only would John Major spin with him, but JM had built this narrative that like roped people in. He's like, here's why we're doing this. And it's like, it was so good. Like, and he had a line of people that were down to spin with John Major. So it was awesome.
He's just in his element. And he did a video, by the way. We'll probably put that video like on the Chain React website, because it's so good. But you'll see him actually spinning in there. It's really fun. So Frank posted in our little like, hey, what stories do you have? He reminded us of Tim and Ian from NetJets, and when they were actually, so they were speakers at this Chain React, but they had such a great experience at a workshop at Chain React last year that they were able to go back to their jobs and kind of like apply the things that they had learned, and they were able to take, some, like, I don't know exactly what version, but they were on some old like 0.65 version or something and transition the app forward. They even tried to use my Flame like upgrading tool, the AI React Native upgrading tool, which kind of worked, but there were some, it's such an old like version that it took some manual labor as well. But they had a lot of really great things to say about Chain React. They applied for the CFP and they talked about their experience in a lightning talk. I do think that was a really cool thing. I talked with Ian and Tim quite a bit, sort of behind the scenes and elsewhere. And yeah, they were just having such a great time. So that was a good story as well. All right, Mazen, you have a story about another speaker.
One of our speakers, her name was Isra. She I believe this was her first talk that she gave at Infinite Red, Chain React at her conference. But she also mentioned she is a baker also on the side. So she very, very nice of her, baked us cookies, the Infinite Red team, that literally had the Infinite Red logo on it. And those cookies were really, really good.
They were so good. I think I ended up having like 3
I didn't know you could have more than one.
because we had a bunch left over.
Oh, that's why I didn't have
They
any.
looked amazing
So
too.
So good.
I'm kidding.
Isra is such.
You were there when we were eating the extras.
Isra is so cool, and I'm going to propose a new rule from now on: only bakers for speakers. Like every speaker has to bring.
It's
cookies.
part of the
Love it.
CFP. You
Yeah,
have
what
to,
cookies are you
submit
bringing?
cookies,
Like
so.
that's what I want to know. Yeah, no, she was fantastic. First time I gave her a little nudge to submit a CFP, but she did such a great job. It was awesome to see her there, and yes, amazing cookies. And they had that Infinite Red logo on them, which was that was so cool.
You're pretty good at giving people nudges to give it the first time.
Wonder who you're talking about.
Not speaking from any kind of experience at all.
I'm going to take a little opportunity to take a little side note there. Robin, it was your first talk ever at a conference.
It
So
was.
tell us about that. How did that go?
There's I think in my mind there's like the before and the after, because like how did it go? If you'd when you asked me like the 3 days before the talk, it was not well, and then immediately after, it was like, oh, that went great. I feel so much better.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. I felt really accomplished afterwards and like proud that I actually like did it and made it happen. And it was
You did an amazing talk.
quite a lot of work.
And I will say, I got to see it. You worked very, very hard on it. Like you practiced a ton. You got a lot of feedback. You incorporated that feedback. As I'm watching your talk, I'm like sitting there, like watching it from the back. I'm like, oh, cool. She added that. You know, she did that. That's so cool. Like I'm like spotting all the little things that you did. Because I never saw the final result until the conference. Like I had given you feedback all along, but didn't get the final result. And it was so great. Colin Gray as well from Shopify. He was the talk before yours, and he really set you up well.
Yeah.
He did a good job of
He did.
Like he knew you were coming after, and
I thought it was a coincidence. I thought it was just like happenstance. And then I talked to him afterwards. He's like, no, I did that on purpose.
it's so thoughtful.
Which was really nice of him and a total like pro
I'll
move.
tell you.
So thank you,
Yes,
Colin.
thank you, Colin. And I'll tell you, if you look at his Twitter feed, it's mostly him complaining to companies that are not doing good like customer service. But if you ever meet him in person, he's like one of the kindest, coolest people you'll ever meet. Yeah. So don't judge him on his Twitter presence. He uses it to vent to companies.
Yeah, it's really his backdoor customer
Right.
service
Yeah,
account,
it's like UPS. Come on, I haven't got my package yet.
which is surprisingly
It is.
effective.
I get why he does it.
I've used
It's totally great.
I've used that tactic. Yeah.
Jed, I'm seeing in our notes that we have something about water damage. Tell me about this one.
Mm-hmm. So I guess before I get into this story, I need to ask you all, do our podcast listeners know about the whole thing with Gant?
We
and
need
water
to tell
damage?
them.
You know, I
We've
don't
never
think that they
introduced
do.
Aquaman on the
Okay.
show.
Yes.
It's time that they know and that
Yes.
we warn them.
They really do
Yes.
need to be warned at the end of the day. Like there's a
If
lot to unpack there.
If you travel ever with Gant,
Gant
be
Laborde,
prepared.
our
for-
CIO
Hold on.
here at Infinite
I
Red.
feel like hopefully Gant isn't invited to any conference soon, and they're gonna like rescind the invite because of this. Like we,
All right, tell the story, Jed. We got to hear about this. The water
All
damage.
Okay,
right.
so I'm going to set some brief context here. So there's this long running like inside IR joke about water damage just following Gant wherever he goes, because that's what it looks like. Like Gant goes to a hotel. There's water damage 2 doors down. Gant's back at home. Water heater explodes. There's water. It's
he
like,
literally lives in
but
New Orleans.
he left the
it's true.
continent.
and lived there through Katrina. So like this is a long history. He's dealt with water damage.
This goes back a ways,
Yeah.
but it's gotten to the point where everybody's like, Gant, like, I'm trying not to see a parallel here, but there's a parallel here. Like,
His
Even
honey,
there's some crossover that's
It was on
happening.
his honeymoon.
off
like
mainland U.S.
That's right.
Like he wasn't even in New Orleans. He
yeah. At this point,
Yep.
it's starting to not feel like a coincidence. Anyway.
Yep. So, okay, all that to say, there's a history with Gant and water damage. So Gant's, of course, they're with us at Chain React. And I was jokingly saying to somebody before that, it was like, how funny would that be if water damage somehow became involved with Chain React? So fast forward to, I think it was Thursday when we're getting ready for the first morning of the actual conference. One of the folks here, Dan, had to go to the front desk because, and I just overhear Dan talking to the front desk. He's like, yeah, there's some water damage in my bathroom. It looks like there's water coming from the ceiling. And I stop everything. My goodness. I'm still like uncaffeinated mode, but I like the fog of the morning clears and I'm like, wait a second, your room has water damage? And he's like, yes. I'm like, that's amazing. And I just started dying
Which is
laughing.
the reaction that you expect.
And the person behind the counter is just looking at me like, what's your deal? But yeah, so that's where it started. And
It
then
didn't end there.
It didn't end there though. So we get to the armory and turns out their whole second floor, so they have several, what is it called, like 4 floors or something like that. But their second
these
floor,
are like the lower level.
yeah, it was the one right
yeah.
under our main floor.
Right.
That one had gotten completely flooded because of a water leak from a pipe the night before.
Well, and that's where all the bathrooms were.
Yeah, and thankfully it was also where the beginner workshops. It was the same level. So luckily the water damage happened the day after the workshops, not the day before. But yeah, that's beside the point. There was more water damage, and so I tracked down Gant and I'm like, okay, whatever you're doing,
You need to stop.
you need to dial it back a little bit because this is becoming a real problem.
This was already a major meme to the point where it couldn't happen again. Like there's no way that it could happen again prior to all of this happening. Like it had already happened like 15 times at places Gant was at, like, and yes, on his honeymoon, like everything. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Don't invite Gant unless you have a wetsuit, I guess.
Just
very
have
wary.
really good insurance.
Exactly.
And just, maybe some high weighting boots. So
Yep. So that's the water damage story.
David Loulette, who technically doesn't work for Infinite Red, but basically works for Infinite Red. He's like, he always comes to our conference from France. He always shows up and he hangs out with us in our Slack. And I don't know. I think, he's been a friend of mine for many, many years. So he reminded us about a guy that I met him 10 years ago. So David says that he says, I met Bill, a former iOS dev who followed the beginner workshop, and he started his career working with Apple Fax, F-A-X, and has a strong expertise with Bluetooth devices. So I also met Bill, and Bill came up to me and said, hey, you and I met each other 10 years ago at Inspect 2014, which is a conference, the very first conference I ever attended, also the first conference I spoke at. And he was doing the same tech at that time, and apparently we met there. I didn't remember him in particular, but he was there, and that was really cool to be like, hey, a reconnection after 10 years. By the way, Colin Gray, who I mentioned before, he was also there. Todd, Gant, all these people. There's a lot of stuff kind of comes from that. But after David posted this, Brian Stearns came in from our team as well, and Brian said, oh, hey, I worked with Bill at Apple in 1986.
Wow.
So he went way back with Bill, and that's pretty cool. Like there's some connections that go way, 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 way back. I was only, I guess, 5 years old at that time, and none of you were born. So
Fact.
there is that.
true.
Great.
I just killed the mood. All right. Let's talk after party. Jed, you got a story about the after party.
Yes, I definitely do. First off, the after party was a ton of fun. I was one of the folks planning it, and I had no idea that so many people were going to stick around afterwards. It was so awesome seeing everybody hang out and chatting and grabbing drinks, grabbing food.
And this was
all
at
sorts
the
of great
Armory.
conversation. This was at the Armory. There were several after parties, and so this was the first after party, first day of the conference. And Kelsey, who is one of our main contacts, I've already mentioned Alexandria, who is awesome. Kelsey was also super great. So whenever Alexandria wasn't there, Kelsey was there. Kelsey had a certain spot that he would always post up at. And so if I ever had any questions, and there was always things coming up. And so during the after party, Kelsey always had a certain spot. So I would always look over there and be like, okay, there he is, in case I've got a question for him. Later that night, I look over, I couldn't find Kelsey. Kelsey's posted up by the front door. So I'm like, that's random. It seemed weird, but it was out of place. So I walk over and ask Kelsey if everything's going all right. And he had mentioned a couple people had snuck into the after party and they were just walking around. And he went and escorted them out. And then he just posted up at the front like a bouncer. He's like, yeah, it happens pretty regularly. You'll get one or two people that wander in. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I had no idea. Like, I mean, there were so many people that, one or two more that snuck in. Not something on your radar, but yeah. So he played bouncer for the rest of the night.
The Armory is fantastic. There's such, I mean, for those of you who don't know, it's I think it's called Portland Center Stage at the Armory is the venue. And it's in Portland in the Pearl District, and it's a beautiful venue. You can see pictures of it, and the staff is really, really fantastic as well. Been there 5 times.
Staff is amazing.
It's primarily known for like theater productions. That's what Portland Center Stage is, but I think they've been working in the past few years, like trying to get the word out that they're
more conferences. Yeah,
they're an event venue for other things besides theater, including conferences. You can actually get married there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do weddings. It's
good to know.
Is it?
Sorry.
Quick trivia. Do any of you know who recommended the Armory to me? It was Jason Brown. Jason is, he lives in Portland, or he did at the time. I don't know if he still does. I haven't actually chatted with him for a little bit. But he did React Native. He did an animations course that was really good. And I was connected to him through Ken Wheeler, who had basically, I was like, hey, we're doing a conference. I'm looking for a venue or something along those lines. And he tagged Jason and was like, hey, this guy's in Portland. And Jason was like, you got to do it at the Armory. The Armory's the best place. And I was like, oh, cool. So, that was a little bit of trivia.
Well, thank you to Jason Brown.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's the little story about the Armory. Staff there was amazing. They wore all of the hats. We came up and had some random requests, and they knocked it out of the park every time. And then, I learned that Kelsey could also be a bouncer. So there you go.
So after the after party, which was Thursday night, one of our sponsors, Runway, hosted an after party at Ground Control. For those that don't know, Ground Control is an arcade bar, essentially, and a barcade.
Like old school. Yeah, old school arcades.
Like it's an old school arcade that serves drinks.
That's what we call them over here.
Yes.
There you go. Yep.
And they brought pizza and stuff. So a bunch of people from IR and the conference went. So JP was telling us that at the after party at Ground Control, him, Josh, and John Major, who all three from Infinite Red, ended up going there. And they said when they walked in, the bartender goes, everything's free. System is down. So probably CrowdStrike. Who knows?
Well, yeah, this was, by the way, the conference was happening, like the CrowdStrike outage that was happening exactly like during the conference. This is all happening in the background.
He was like, thankfully, because he died a lot in time of crisis. So CrowdStrike, thank you for helping with that. But also, this is like the cool part of the story. There was a lot of IR versus Expo games happening. One that I saw was Dance Dance Revolution, Keith versus JP. I don't know who won that one, but we'll say JP won that one.
And we'll just say it.
And then
we have the mic.
John Major and I believe JP played Slime Soccer. I don't know if they actually were.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Were they covered in slime?
Is Slime Soccer?
Is it a video game, arcade game?
I have so many questions.
We'll Google after it, but I don't know actually. But John Major and JP were playing Slime Soccer for IR, for Team IR, Red, versus the team in, I assume probably wearing black, Expo, Keith, Kurak, and Charlie Cheever. And they lost pretty handedly, is what I heard.
Epic. Both of whom we've had on the podcast.
Exactly.
By the way.
So a lot of rivalry in the barcade scene between IR and Expo.
So thanks, CrowdStrike. Actually, no thanks, because people had the toughest time getting home after.
I mean, he didn't submit this story, but I'm sure he's okay with me telling it. JP slept at the Atlanta airport because of CrowdStrike. Like it just wasn't feasible to go 30 minutes out. It was like over 30 minutes.
Almost everybody who was flying out, unless they were on Southwest.
I got stuck in it.
Yeah, because Southwest hasn't yet migrated to computers, but they'll get there.
Yeah.
They're just really vulnerable to cyber attacks. but they're apparently not vulnerable to
Cybersecurity updates.
updates.
Hey, if post-it notes work, don't bash it.
Right.
There's like a post-it note for the pilot. It's like, engine's working fine. Go.
All right, so our amazing MC, Kenneth LaFrance, was making fun of Portland. He was making fun of hipsters.
In jest. It
Sounded pretty serious to me, but LaCroix, he was just going after everything. So Jed and John Major, Jed, tell this story about when we did the team dinner and Kenneth was there.
Okay, so what was it? We were at the team dinner. Ken was there. John Major comes up to me because they had these
Pellegrino.
San Pellegrinos or
Right.
something like that. It's a classy
Right.
sparkling
Yeah.
water, you know? It's a sparkling water that's a step above. So John Major comes up to me with this fancy sparkling water and he's like, I bet Ken would like this. Because both of us were downing that the entire night. We were just like, this is amazing. We both knew we already liked it. Like, we should get Ken to try it. And so we walk over to Ken. We're like, okay, you need to give this a shot. We know you're going to love it. Ken tried it. Long story short, he did not like it, and he condemned us.
I got a
much
video
for
of it.
And Jamon got a video
I
of
got
it.
a video of it. All right, so we're pretty much out of time here. Holy cow! Yeah, we've gone way over time. All these stories. I do want to tell one last story here, and that is that toward the end of the conference, like just wrapping things up, I think we were actually taking things down at that point. This guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I'm like, "You look familiar, just vaguely familiar, but I can't really place, where you're from." He said, I'm the guy from the restaurant when your son saw me." So like from that little description, it immediately sparked a memory. And this was like 8 years ago. I mean, I'm talking like Cedric was probably 12 or 13 years old. Like he was, like this was a while ago. And Cedric, so we walked into a restaurant, Cedric and I, my son, and he's like, "Dad, I think that guy over there in the corner has, like on his laptop, he has an Infinite Red sticker of some sort." And we were nowhere near. We weren't like, we were out like, in an area that there's no tech there. Like there's nothing. There's nobody. There's no offices there. This is a residential area. It's like pretty far away from Portland. And so I look over and he has a Reactitron sticker. And so I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I walk over there. I'm like, "Hey, do you use Reactitron?" He's like, "No, I actually don't even really know what it is. Like, I'm trying to get into tech." And he's like, "I went to a meetup and someone was handing out stickers and I got this one. I thought it looked cool. And so I put it on my laptop." Turns out, so I had told him like, "Hey, reach out anytime." I never really heard back from him or whatever, but I told him who I was. Turns out he had like a year later moved down to the Bay Area and got a job and was like, I think a React dev for like 4 years or something like that or longer. He then had moved back to Portland and then eventually figured out that we were doing a conference there. And so he got a ticket and he came. And so it was kind of like this cool full circle moment where, just that chance meeting actually ended up getting to see him again. So that was really cool. I loved that.
That's a really cool story. Like full circle moment.
Yeah, hugely.
Like like a butterfly.
Yeah,
type thing.
exactly. All right, let's wrap this up. I do want to say shout out to the Chain React sponsors, which include Amazon Developers, our platinum sponsor. Of course, all of our gold and silver sponsors, all of our amazing speakers. Everybody was just so cool. They were on time. They did very well. Our Lightning Talk speakers, a lot of them, it was their first time speaking. Our very hilarious MC, Kenneth LaFrance, the show within the show. He makes the in-between talks just as fun as the talks themselves. Our panelists, our workshop instructors, and of course, all of you, hundreds of beautiful people who came and made it such an amazing thing. It doesn't happen unless people, get the tickets and fly out here and hang out with us. And I really hope you all do it again next year. Thanks to everyone. Big time. That's it for this episode. Robin, do you have a mom joke?
I do. I have a pretty special one. I'm going to shout out Raheem, who gave me this joke. He's a longtime attendee of Chain React. He's been to, I don't know if quite all of them or not, but he's been to a lot of them. Every time he sees me in person, he gives me a joke. He sends them to me via DMs too. It always makes me smile. So this joke is from him. Why do developers prefer dark mode?
Why?
Because bugs are attracted to light.
Thanks a lot, Raheem.
Okay.
All right. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Hi.
As always, thanks to our production team with editor Todd Worth, our assistant editor, this guy, Jed Bartausky, our director of communications and episode release coordinator, Justin Husky, and our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg. Our producer and host is Jamon Holmgren, and executive producers and hosts are Robin Hines and Mazen Chami. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/React Native. A special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe to React Native Radio wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you think.